Hello and welcome to the 10th episode of the How to Survive podcast. Hey! This week we're covering the 1997 classic James Cameron's Titanic. Yay! Joining me is Joe, who's just pouring me some champagne to celebrate our 10th episode. 10 successful ones, you'd say, Joe?
10 of the best.
Yeah.
Here's to 10 more, at least.
Lovely.
Let's look back across what we've done so far. The media empire we've built so far.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers. And up yours.
Yeah. So we started with Friday the 13th.
How do you rate that?
It was okay.
Mm-hmm.
Slash film. It was funny to talk about.
Yes.
It's not the best film in the world, but it was entertaining.
Yes, I hope we got a good laugh out of it. It followed.
Yeah.
Which it does.
Yeah, as it does.
That was really good. I think that was a good film to...
Yeah, really good. Yeah.
Hopefully, if people haven't seen that, hopefully they learnt a bit of something about it.
Yeah, and maybe, hopefully, people have gone to see it as well. Alien was third.
Which everyone's seen and everyone loves, and hopefully that was just a new take on it.
Yeah, fourth was Jurassic World. Mm-hmm. Great film.
Yeah.
Good fun.
Best one on the list, for sure.
Yeah, it was a good laugh to talk about that one. Misery,
yeah. Well, great, we got 2 glasses of champagne, it's fitting.
Yeah.
No cigarettes for us, though. Smokers are jokers.
Yeah. The Loved Ones.
Yeah. That's probably the most esoteric one on the list.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the more divisive ones as well. Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
A classic. Good fun.
Yeah, iconic.
Yeah, some good discussion as well.
Yeah, that was probably one of the most fun to discuss, even if it didn't come across that way in the recording.
Yeah, and then on the other side of the coin, The Hills Have Eyes.
Yeah, less said the better.
Yeah, and then last week we were talking about Everest.
Yeah. The
recent disaster film.
Yeah.
Based on a real life disaster.
We've had some interesting experiences trying to talk about how to survive in films.
Yeah.
Because they're not always what you expect. Often we haven't seen the film, so going in, you have your expectations sort of twisted.
Yeah.
And often that's good, but often it does leave us with an issue in discussing how we survive, but also something to talk about.
Yeah, I think overall, Joe, it's been a success.
We wanted to set out to make a podcast of us talking about movies and saying how we survive in them, and I think we've achieved that.
And here's to 10 more.
Yeah.
Cheers.
So, 1,500 killed when the Titanic sunk.
Yeah. So, Titanic, Joe, is the story of Titanic, Joe.
Yep.
The ship set sailed in 1912.
Yes. We could spend all day going through the plot.
We could, and we will. No. So, a very quick summary. Have you got one there?
Yes, I have. Here's one I made earlier.
Sure.
Everyone's seen the film.
Yes.
I don't know a single person in the developed world who hasn't seen Titanic.
It's weird, isn't it? Because it's not a nice film.
I disagree.
Well, it's not
like Forrest Gump, for instance.
No, it's not like E.T. or like a family-friendly film.
But I don't think everyone's seen E.T.
Well, that's as maybe.
I think it's just the most. In terms of box office returns, it probably has been overtaken by James Cameron's Avatar.
Yeah.
And maybe others.
But then adjusting for inflation. But then if you're going to adjust for inflation, it's gone with the wind by some crazy margin. But yeah, it's it is a film that I think it's certainly of our generation. I think everyone's seen it.
Yes.
I think it hit at the right time for our generation.
Yeah. What were we, 6? So we grew up with it.
But I didn't watch it when I was 6, obviously.
Yeah. The Berlin Wall was down, and the 2 towers were up.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that nice period during the 90s where the world was kind of nice.
It's a simple place. Yeah. Everyone was easily divided into class.
Yeah.
And that was the one-stop shop for knowing exactly how long they needed to wait before they were rescued.
And that made the film very easy to manage.
Exactly. That was at the time, Joe. Titanic was so easy to follow for even us 6 years old, because even we had a solid understanding of the class system and how that made us better than a lot of people.
Well, exactly, yeah. Well, I mean, you count yourself in first class.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And if you haven't seen the film recently, which, to be fair, I hadn't seen it in, 15 years until this week. Here's a refresher if you haven't seen it.
Sure.
Leonardo DiCaprio is in it, and so is Kate Winslet.
Yeah, and he plays Titanic, is that right?
Yes, he's the Titanic.
Right, okay.
And she is...
He's the iceberg.
Yeah.
The star-crossed lovers. Nothing in the world could come between them. It's interesting how they used... It's the first film to really use motion capture to really capture Leonardo's performance as the iceberg. It was really interesting. Sorry,
he was the Titanic. I know it's easy to get them confused.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah. No, one and the same.
Yeah. So Leonardo DiCaprio played Jack Bauer.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Jack. Jack Dawson.
Jack Dawson. Dawson's Creek.
Yeah.
And Kate Winslet was Rose.
Rose DeWitt Bukater.
We'll call her Rose.
Rose DeWitt, yeah.
Rose DeWitt. DeWitt to it.
Yeah.
They're on the Titanic, the RMS Titanic, on its infamous maiden voyage, where they fall in love. The problem is, they're from different classes, different worlds.
Yeah.
She's engaged to marry Cal Hockley, who's played by Billy Zane, in order to save her mother's waning fortune. She chooses Leo for reasons that are plot-based, but ultimately illogical. They have a brief romp, which ends in them saving each other's lives a couple of times as the boat inevitably sinks. They both end up in the water. Rose climbs aboard a wardrobe door, which is her flotation device, where there's not enough room for Jack, and he freezes to death. She's saved, and goes on about 85 years later. She goes on to tell her story to a salvage crew who are trying to retrieve a diamond called the Heart of the Ocean from the Titanic wreckage. And the film ends with her, now 102, I think? 105? She's over 100.
Over 100.
Yeah. Dying in her sleep, and therefore fulfilling a promise she made to Jack that she would live a full life and remember him.
Not sure it's explicit that she dies at the end.
I think it is.
Well, she goes to sleep, but I'm not sure it's...
Well, no, because then there's that sequence of her as
young
Kate.
there's the dream, yeah.
I know, I think that's...
Do you think that's
I think
the
it's like
interpretation?
Lost. Yeah.
Okay, so what so she in dying, she returns to be... Oh, yeah, I guess I see the symbolism. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Because Jack was her true love, and you'd make sense that...
Yeah. Okay.
But, I mean, the only problem I have with that is it just completely invalidates the other 85 years of her life. Like, she had her grandchild with her. Presumably she had other children. And I think she talks about her. She had a fantastic life.
So you'd rather have you'd want a film that's sort of based around the rest of her life, because she becomes a sort of Amelia Earhart sort of figure. Yeah. Okay.
That's right. I mean, that's kind of what I liked about the film, Chris, is the sentimentality. Yeah. Right? And you can say it's schmaltzy, you can say it's melodramatic, but to be honest with you, I loved it. Yeah. And particularly, I mean, the end shot where it sort of pans across everything she did afterwards. Yeah. It shows her riding a horse, flying a plane, which they're all things she said she wanted to do to Jack on the boat. Yeah. And it's kind of like, oh, she actually fulfilled her promise to him to live that. And there's a shot of her holding her arms up, and she's, oh my god, I'm flying. Yeah. And she does fly.
She does fly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, I like that. Yeah.
And I liked the this is where we met part. They met when she was going to jump off the back of the boat, and then when the ship's going down, they're there, and she says, "Oh, this is where we met." Yeah. And it's very. I mean, I got goosebumps when it happened. Call me a softie. Yeah. But then what I realised is the last shot, or one of the last shots, where she throws the diamond off the back of the sort of salvage boat. That's
the back of the boat again.
Right, so it's all full circle. Very poetic. And you've seen the Notebook. Didn't like it.
Okay.
But for some reason, this is okay with me.
Okay. I think it is. It's not as sentimental as the Notebook. I don't think. The Notebook does have that extra level of. I don't know if tragedy is the right word. I take the comparison. I prefer Titanic to Notebook as well.
For a lot of reasons, but
it's actually a much better film than I remembered it being.
Yes.
I think there's a tendency for people to sort of hate on Titanic, and
It's very cool not to like it.
Yeah, there's a very good. I don't know if you, the listener, has heard of the YouTube channel Red Letter Media, but if you haven't, then you should definitely check out their review of Titanic, because in that they talk about why everyone loves Titanic and why everyone hates Titanic, because it seems to be like,
divisive.
Yeah. But it's actually a much better film than I remember. And I think part of the reason that I disliked it in retrospect is because I hate Avatar. I think Avatar's a bad film.
Yeah.
I really don't enjoy it at all. And I think that's coloured my perception of Titanic.
Did he do anything in between? To go from Titanic, I mean, in each one he was trying to break boundary, basically. Yeah. I mean, you could argue Titanic's kind of the last of the pre-CGI films, right? In some ways, it has CGI in it, but he built probably the biggest set of. I mean, that's the last film with a big set that he built. Basically, he built the Titanic. Basically, he rebuilt it to sink it, and that's something you wouldn't get in a modern film. It's amazing. Well, I think what sets it apart as well, though, is that the script is really tight. So, like you said about the bow of the ship becoming like a place of significance, it's the first time they meet, and then there's that throwback to it. There are other little elements throughout the film which show that there's been a lot of thought with regards to the script, of looping in these little callbacks. Yes, and it can be really small things, like Cal has a bodyguard who sort of becomes one of the villains of the film. And at one point early on in the film, he pulls apart his jacket and there's a gun in a holster there. Yes. And then later on, Cal takes the gun, and like if that shot of the bodyguard showing Cal his gun, didn't happen, you'd still be like, oh, okay, well he was holding a gun, that makes sense. Yeah, it's fine. He's a bodyguard, makes sense. Yeah. But because it's like it's planted. Yeah, you've planted the seed, and it's like here is Cal, here is the bodyguard. The bodyguard has a gun. Cal has seen that, and is later going to use that information later in the film. Yeah. But equally, there's the shot of when she's learning to spit. Yeah, and she spits in Cal's face. Yeah, and you'd normally say this is a weird thing to do for a posh woman, an upper class woman. Yeah, an upper class woman to spit in someone's face. She's already learned how to spit, and it's kind of her showing her allegiance to Leo even more, to Jack. And the film is full of those little things, and I think elements of that, regardless of how schmaltzy you might feel the script is, and it is a sentimental film. It's like a really totally uncynical love story. Yeah, the actual script is really well done, really well written to close all of these little loops in terms all the way through the film. Yeah, okay. There's nothing left unexplored. Even as detailed as like Fabrizio cutting the rope to free one of the boats late on in the film. He cuts it with the knife that he wins in the first scene. Like, those sorts of things don't happen by accident. And even in the case of Fabrizio, who's like a minor character in the context of the film, to have these little details threaded all the way through shows that it's a really high quality and high... That they've really thought it through. Yeah, exactly, yeah. But that said, there are some absolute clangers in terms of dialogue in the film. Yeah, I mean, there's the ones that really annoy me, and they always annoy me in films, are like the smug little in-jokes to the audience, which are like sort of, I don't know if anachronistic is the right word, but it's like, Rose is a fan of art, right? Cal is not a fan of art. Right. This is portrayed by Rose looking at a painting and saying, oh, it's... this is Picasso. He's never heard of him. Yeah. And Cal goes, "Oh, what's his name? Picasso? He'll never amount to a thing." And it's like eyes rolling into the back of my head. And there's another one where Bruce Ismay, played by Jonathan Hyde, says, "Who is this Freud? Is he a passenger?" Yeah, Sigmund Freud. Yeah, like the little thing. I don't like dialogue that just panders to the audience, because all that's doing is trying to make the audience feel clever for going, "Oh, I know who Picasso is." Right.
Cal doesn't know who Picasso is.
Right, I'm better than Cal.
Yeah.
It works on that level.
But you've been alive like 80 years later than Cal. Like, and it's cheap dialogue writing for the purposes of a joke and for like just to I think it's an attempt to sort of develop a character, like as in the character of Cal or the character of Bruce Ismay, by just showing them to be sort of stupid, but in a way,
by our standards.
Yeah, exactly. But like with the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah. Well, it's very broad.
Yeah.
And
but with
that said, there were no Picassos on the Titanic.
I'd imagine that there's riddled with things like that.
But it's surprisingly the fact checking appears to be quite good.
Right.
It seems to be based mostly. I mean, all the little sort of interactions they have with other passengers.
Yeah.
They, I don't think, almost entirely are based on testimony from other passengers. And you see that if you ever watched A Night to Remember, which is the big Titanic film before this one, the one that everyone sort of refers to as. I mean, a lot of people. That's
the one where they sing as they're all singing.
Nearer My God to Thee as they go down.
Yeah.
Which is a bit. I mean, that's even more sentimental than.
Yeah, but this is certainly a more grounded depiction of it.
But it's in that you can say even like the blocking of each shot, as well as like the words they use, as well as the people who are talking to each other. Obviously, you're never going to know. It's a sort of question of who knows what really happened there. But the films seem to echo each other.
Sure.
So to the point where it's stuff like when the Thomas Andrews who built the ship, there's a scene where he tells them we're going down.
Yeah.
And he says it's mathematical certainty.
Yeah.
And that's from.
But is that James Cameron quoting from A Night to Remember,
or from real life?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Because presumably, it might not be that anyone who had that conversation with Thomas Andrews survived.
Yeah, that's quite true.
I wonder if it's more like because A Night to Remember was such a huge film,
he wanted to do a bit of an homage to it.
Yeah, and it's like it's what people are going if someone goes see, because that's probably how a lot of people imagined Titanic. Again, I'd urge people to watch the Red Letter Media review of the film because they actually talk about similarities between A Night to Remember and Titanic.
They put them side by side.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to be the one to quote them without citing them as how I realised this.
Red Letter Media reviews are very good, but I don't like the way they're broken up with those weird segments.
Well, like the
he's murdering women and stuff.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Yeah, I don't like that either.
So we know we don't like it. I mean, comparisons, like I say, fact checking. Let's come back to it. Papers released by whatever office is in charge of releasing such papers says that the third class passengers never were actually locked below deck systematically.
No. Yeah.
I think it was more of a miscommunication. That they were there to basically keep them separate when they were like boarding and leaving. Yeah. And it seems to be a miscommunication rather than an active way to murder them or to keep the lifeboats free.
Yeah. I think with elements like that, there's a certain extent to which the romantic part of the film takes over.
Yeah. Rose's mum saying, I hope I haven't got to sit next to any poor people, basically, in life.
Yeah, exactly. Will we be suited by class? Yeah. I think, in actual fact, it was probably not as much like that. I think that those sorts of things probably sacrifice realism for the sake of dramatic, for the sake of drama. Yeah.
I mean, everyone I speak to about this film, the kind of thing they highlight is the evil of the people who locked them down there. But that's not necessarily true. I think that does paint them rather badly. But I don't think this is a film that shies away from character assassinations either. Particularly the captain, Edward Smith, and J. Bruce Ismay, who was the sort of financier behind the ship. Yeah. They get pretty much torn to shreds from representations of bad decisions.
Well, Ismay was famously, because Ismay gets on one of the boats while it's still women and children.
Yes.
And there's that sort of pointed shot of the guard who looks at him and is sort of disgusted at the fact that he's getting on the boat. That is true. That did happen. And he did.
He got a lot of heat when he got back.
Yeah, and he turned. There's a shot of him turning away from the Titanic sinking, which is actually what he did. He said he couldn't bear to watch his creation sinking, and he got home and he was hounded as a coward for the rest of his life, basically. So those sorts of elements are relatively fair. What may not be is the notion that they were speeding to get there faster.
He said get there faster.
To break records and all that sort of thing. There's wide reports that there was no reason that they would ever have to do that. Basically, they had no
cause.
Yeah. I don't personally feel like the captain comes across too badly. In all honesty,
I don't know. I think you could read it either way. He basically goes catatonic after they hit the iceberg.
Yeah, there's that scene where there's the Irish woman.
Yeah.
He's like,
"What should I do?
What shall I do with the baby?" Yeah. And he just sort of goes,
"Fuck the viner."
Yeah. But I think he at least gets some respect. I mean, this is like an awful way to get respect, but by going down with the ship, which is what captain's supposed to do. But yeah, I don't think he comes across that badly in the context of the whole film, at least, because I know Cal Hockley isn't a real man.
No,
and he's maybe one of the most evil villains in
cinema history.
Yeah. He's like drippingly evil.
Yeah.
Like you see him, and like if there were any, like if you had to describe like a villain, a cinema villain, what they would look like, you'd probably go for like dark hair and dark features, slicked back like oiled hair, like pretentious, like
sneering,
snooty and sneering, and like turning their nose up, like out of touch with people and emotions and anything that's right, basically. And like Cal Hockley is just he's just like a slimy, nasty man.
There's a clip of James Cameron in an interview saying, "I didn't want to create a character who was a moustache twirling villain," and it seems like the only way he's tried to circumvent that is by making him clean shaven.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think a lot of this owes a lot to Billy Zane's performance.
Yes,
because Billy Zane he's not a particularly world-renowned actor.
No, I can't name anything else.
No, exactly. But he's fantastic. He's really good. Yeah. Like there's the scene where he hits Rose.
Yes.
Not the one where he throws the table out of the way. Where he actually hits
slaps
her.
It.
There's like, just before he does it, he sort of like takes this sort of like disgusted inward like breath, like a sort of, and then hits her. Yeah. And like just little characteristics that he gives the character like that. Just, I don't know, it's almost like that scene for me wouldn't be the same if he didn't do that weird little like snivelling sort of breath before he did it. It's just like makes him seem so much more like lizard-like and horrible.
He was excellent.
Like, was he wearing eyeliner?
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
that's the other thing. Like, like how to make someone look even more evil and
give him
exactly. Like,
yeah, it was good. I mean, other than him and his man.
Yeah, his manservant.
Yeah, everyone else is pretty sympathetic. I mean, Rose's mother, you could argue, is a bit of a...
She's a victim of circumstance.
Right, yeah, but we're going to reference it again, the Red Letter Media review, they mentioned that there is opportunity for character development in terms of Rose's mum. Like, there's that conversation between her and Rose when she's putting on her corset, where she says, like, she basically shows a kind side.
An emotional side,
where she's like, "Oh, the reason I'm doing this is because I'm vulnerable." And you go, "Oh, right, I get it." But then 5 minutes later, she's back to being a
horrible, heartless woman.
So it's kind of like an unexplored vulnerability.
Yeah, I guess so. For all that we're saying about the qualities of the film, I think it does paint the classes in really broad strokes. Yeah. And I don't think any of them are particularly... I think that is offensive to all of the classes that it depicts, basically.
First class people are posh polo enthusiasts and smoke cigars and drink brandy.
Like horrible, snooty, like rich unsympathetic people.
And third class are salt of the earth, like dancing and drinking.
Yeah, like tribal, like sort of when it goes down there and you've got Rose there, it's like a sort of like ethnic safari.
It's like Zion in the Matrix.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a David Attenborough like people documentary, going like, here we have the third class. Yeah. And like they're all like dancing around, they're drinking, they're fighting, but it's all good-natured fighting. Yeah. It's just like there's no nuance to any of the classes or the characters in James Cameron's Titanic world.
I think you got one-dimensional characters, but I'm okay with that. I'll be honest with you here. Because, I mean, I'm a fan of WWE wrestling.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. I like my characters to be good and bad.
Yeah.
Painted. It's like a pantomime, right? And if you... Put it this way, right? Compared to most of the films we reviewed in this podcast series...
Yeah.
These characters could be considered the most nuanced, interesting and diverse group of people that you could hope to find in a movie.
That's probably true, yeah. In terms of the films that we've covered.
Yes. But not in terms of all of cinema.
No.
But interestingly, this film isn't in the IMDb top 250 films ever. So at number 4 you got The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Which is comic book, good and bad.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, you say Bruce Wayne's a tragic hero, but ultimately it's Batman. At 14 you got Inception. Which I don't think anyone's gone to see that for the
character nuance.
No, you want to see the cool effects and the mind.
But then,
right?
have people gone to this for the character nuance? But I suppose your point is that even if they haven't, it's there.
I mean, every James Bond
could
film
be there
in history.
I don't know.
People love James Bond.
You say, is it more nuanced or less nuanced than these other films? But I think you're getting into the territory of like it being a bit arbitrary now, because it's difficult. Like, how do you quantify nuance? Like you could if one trick is to get someone to describe a character without saying what they look like.
Right. The litmus test you have here. Yeah. You could say that about even Fabrizio. Yeah. Hey, he's a happy-go-lucky guy who just wants to make it in America.
Yeah.
Right. Is that character development enough for you?
Well, but you're now criticising the film that you were defending because you like the amount of character development.
No, I'm saying it doesn't matter. I'm saying I don't think character development is a big issue in this film, is what I'm saying. It's not a character study.
No. But you were saying that it is in the film, and because of that you feel it's more worthy of a place in the top 10 than, for example, The Dark Knight or...
No, I'm saying it can compete with them.
It can compete with them. Yeah, well, I agree. I think what we were talking about earlier about it being a unfairly derided film is true. And I'll admit
it's not even the top 250 films ever. And I've got to say
it should be up there. Yeah. I think it's
better than The Dark Knight for sure.
But the people who vote on the internet are, they have certain interests, don't they? But I think that, like we were saying, Titanic gets sort of unfairly derided when actually, like, it's like one of the most successful in terms of obviously the money it made, but successful in terms of achieving its aims, like as a piece of epic filmmaking. Like it's a disaster film on just an enormous scale. Yeah, like it was like 1,500 people died.
Yes,
and to depict a disaster of that scale, of that magnitude on screen, and it rarely falls into histrionics, and it's not overly hysterical. It is melodramatic, but it's not
unnecessarily so.
No, like we were talking about Everest last week. Yeah, it's less of a sober portrayal as Everest was. Yeah, but that may be a reflection of the fact that it's a disaster on a larger scale, and it's a more dramatic, like visual.
Well, it's a love story on a sinking ship.
Yeah, but I mean, like the love story is what I think is interesting is that I think it's almost like there's 5 or 6 different genres within the same film. Yeah, Like there's obviously the romance story is a massive part of it, and then there's the action thriller stuff. You know, you've got like chase sequences. You've got like multiple chase sequences. Shootouts, fight scenes. Yeah. Escapes. Yeah, like people clinging on for dear life, all that sort of thing. You've got the disaster movie element of it. Obviously, everything that happens with the ship. Yeah. You've got
survival.
It almost veers into sort of horror movie territory when they're under the in the lower levels of the ship while it's sinking.
It's
and
very
flashing lights and
very similar. I mean, you can practically pull certain scenes from this and put them in other Cameron productions, which are action films. I mean, you've got The Abyss when they're trapped under the water, and you've got all the industrial stuff, which is taken from. But you name it, a Cameron film, it's been in it. You know.
Yeah. Did you know this is the first James Cameron film to not include, depict, or mention nuclear weapons?
I did know that. We heard the same source.
Yeah.
I mean, he wants you to believe that this is a love story set on the Titanic.
Yeah.
And from start to finish, you don't stop believing that.
No.
In terms of filmmaking, like I think you'll struggle to find anything as grand, authentic, or epic. I mean, epic in the traditional sense, not epic man.
Yeah. No, you're right in terms of it being it's an epic film.
It's in terms of filmmaking, you're not gonna get a better film.
No.
Well, maybe you are.
Well,
but, I mean, but name since it came out, can you think of a film that, in terms of filmmaking for you, has met the criteria?
In terms of scale?
Yeah.
Well, if you're talking like ambitious. In terms of scale and like a grand production, I think the closest things that come to it are probably things like either Inception or Interstellar, because they like especially Interstellar. That's maybe the like biggest, the grandest film ever made.
Yeah,
I mean, like it's literally. Like obviously, a lot of films go between solar systems if they're a sci-fi film or whatever. Yeah. But this is almost like it's trying to ground it within a reality, and then like it makes going through a black hole and going to another universe such like a mammoth task and event that it feels like an enormous film.
Yeah, I get it.
I guess that's like the closest thing that I can think off the top
of my head. But also
the
technology. I mean, they actually developed like the world's strongest supercomputer to put that together. And what he's done here, I think, is basically build the world's best film set, right?
Yeah. It's like a whole half of the Titanic, isn't it? Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. And then like the level of detail, as you were saying earlier, in terms of attention to detail, he did it with scenes. Also, I'm pretty sure that much of the film is authentic visually in terms of the look of the ship and the detail elements of the sets.
Yeah, I think he probably had a lot of Titanic consultants on hand.
Well, he also went down to the ship himself.
Yeah, that was apparently his excuse. Well, he wanted to make a movie, but really he wanted to go look at the ship.
Did you know that the film Titanic cost more to make than the actual Titanic?
Really?
Yes.
The physical Titanic?
Yeah, in 90, and that's adjusted for inflation.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing. Another difference, potential with real life, is, you know, the guy, the officer who kills himself? Mm-hmm. I felt that a bit jarring when I was watching it. I thought, really, I don't think that, it seemed a bit far-fetched, to be honest with you.
Right.
Like, why did he do that?
Apparently
there was an
officer who shot himself on the Titanic.
And there was one child who reported that it was the captain. It's
interesting how like you piece together an overall picture of disasters like this when there's so many accounts.
Yeah.
Obviously not nearly as many accounts as there should have been.
Yes. What do you think of the acting? You said Billy Zane did a very good job, and I agree with you.
Yeah, I think one of the strengths of the productions is that most, if not all, of the supporting cast are just very good.
Yeah, like Kathy Bates.
Kathy Bates is great, like Oscar winner Kathy Bates in a supporting role.
Yeah,
and she's having probably the most fun of anyone in the film.
Yeah, I did
like,
say.
But you know, like Frances Fisher as Mrs. DeWitt is really good. Like she's got like a really cold, like porcelain face for the whole film, basically. But you know, she's good. I thought Captain Smith played by Bernard Hill. He was good.
Mm-hmm.
There's like an element of sadness with him.
I really like Thomas Andrews. I thought, I obviously will never know what he was really like, but that seemed like exactly how he would act. If you know what I mean? Like just the quiet word to someone, like you need to get off the boat. Yeah. And the sort of stoicism in the face of it.
Yeah. I mean, he's the one who says to the girl, put your life jacket on, set a good example, isn't he, as well? Yeah.
For goodness sake, set a good example.
Yeah.
But that's another shot taken from
Not to Remember.
But then again, it could be an eyewitness testimony. We'd have to read through all of them, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
In terms of acting, I think everyone did a pretty good job with what was basically a soap opera script.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's maybe a little bit ungenerous, but yeah, I think that's...
DiCaprio gets a lot of heat for being wooden, but his performance was fine.
I like it. Doesn't. I don't think any performance in the film would ever overshadow the spectacle of the film, and it's right that it shouldn't. Like you couldn't really cut like at one point Robert De Niro was going to be the captain. Yeah,
and I think that would have been a bit.
It's been jarring because he's such a massive deal.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine?
It's almost better to have unknowns.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But I defy anyone to watch the scene of Leo or Jack learning how to act as a upper class person when he isn't one.
Yeah. And not find it charming.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is one element of the film, big element of the film, that I don't think works, and that's the modern day setting.
Okay. Well, for the
looking for the diamond.
Yeah.
I think the film spends nearly like 20 minutes at the start setting up the whole present day element with really old Rose, and they fly over to the ship and everything, and like. The film is like the introduction to the film is like obsessing over its own mythology,
right?
Over the Titanic, like the Titanic. The if you chop the Bill Paxton bit at the start and the dropping the diamond off at the end, you've still got a complete film. I don't think you lose anything by not having those two things. The framing device for it.
Well, no, I see what you're saying, but I do like it in a way because. It certainly adds to the sentimentality, and you've got to admit, it's trying to be a sentimental film.
Yeah, yeah.
And it does achieve that even more. I mean, you get the first sort of weepy moment when Jack dies, and you go, oh, but there's lots. When she jumps back on the boat, and it's like, oh, you jump, I jump. And you're like, oh man, yeah. But then at the end, it's that kind of the most pathos you get is probably going to be in her keeping her promise to him and meeting him again in what I would say is the afterlife.
Yeah.
Although you say it's a dream.
But I just think that by opening the film with like a 20-minute segment that's about the significance of this diamond,
which didn't even exist.
Yeah. I think that like somehow devalues its depiction of the
it undermines the actual disaster.
Exactly, yeah, because it's obsessing over the fictional history of its narrative rather than the actual and more interesting history of the real life disaster. In fact, like you could just cut the diamond out of it almost, and just find another reason for Rose to be on the ship. But then I suppose you just. Whatever you say is going to be arbitrary, isn't it? But no, I just think that's a little bit clumsy, or it feels clumsy initially.
Well, I could totally see why you think that.
Yeah.
But I happen to like it. I think on another day I might not have liked it.
I just can't stand that ending where she drops the diamond over the edge, and thereby sacrifices several generations of inheritance,
millions and millions.
Literally the. She's spitting in the faces of her grandchildren, of her great-grandchildren.
She can live with Leo on the boat.
Oh, fucking, mind she can.
Yeah.
She's gone mental. It's ridiculous. One thing I wanted to mention was, what are your feelings about how... Because Rose and Jack basically are on this roller coaster ride which takes them around every significant moment on the Titanic and they're present for all of them, basically.
Right.
So they get on at various times, just as it's leaving, and then, obviously the significant one is they're out on the deck. The only passengers that are out on deck when
the iceberg
hits. They see Thomas Andrews and develop a rapport with him about, he's saying, "Oh, it is going to sink," They
go past the captain and Ismay when they're discussing the speed of the ship.
Exactly, yeah. Like they're present for every significant moment, leading up to the ship's demise, the moment of the moment that the ship is doomed. Like
and they're actually the last off the ship.
Exactly, yeah, they are.
But I you know what? If you're telling the story of the Titanic, you've made people up, that's a clever way to do it.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, because you're using this personal investment that people have through watching these characters on screen to get people interested in the disaster, I guess.
Yeah. But again, I think it's less a case of being too schmaltzy and more a case of just clever storytelling.
Yeah, maybe.
Because we're not actually supposed to believe anyone went through all that.
No, of course not. No.
So when I was watching it, the soundtrack's very good. I'm sure you'll agree with the score. But I was struck by the fact that this sounds a lot like Enya. Right?
Right.
And I don't know why I know so much about Enya, but about a month ago, I went through a big phase of listening to Enya.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You're an Enya fan?
I like Orinoco Flow.
Yeah.
That's about it.
That's it?
Yeah.
Well, that's what got me into it.
Okay.
Because it's usually the end of Peep Show.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I started listening, and I was like, oh, she's really actually very, very good. I think she's Ireland's biggest musical export.
Okay.
Possibly above you two.
Are you Enya's new agent?
No, I'm just telling you. Enya wrote the score for Lord of the Rings.
Right.
I think.
Okay.
But basically, she's prolific.
Yeah.
And I thought, this sounds a lot like Enya.
Okay.
And then, whatever. Didn't mention it to anyone. I just thought, because it's that sort of, and the choir and stuff.
Yeah.
So we went away, and I was doing some research on the film, and I found out James Cameron wanted Enya to write the score, and she said no.
Right.
So he asked James Horner to go away and write a score that sounded like Enya. Right. And now I want to show you a clip from an Enya track.
Okay.
This is Exile from her album Watermark from 1988. And I'll just play you 5 seconds.
Okay.
And you tell me what it sounds like.
Yeah, no, that's actually quite a clear similarity.
Yeah, and Enya's music, you'd have to listen to a lot more of it, but if you listen to enough of it, you'll find that that sort of panpipes are prolific.
Yeah. And
also this kind of right? You'll hear that in a lot of them. And that, if you listen to Rose's theme from the Titanic, is they do like a synth sort of thing of the sound, and they play "My Heart Will Go On" with this.
Yeah.
It's very, very
clear.
Enya.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
Didn't know so much about Enya, did you?
No, I was not expecting any of this conversation.
No.
So it's that time of the show, Joe. It's our namesake. It's why we're here.
Yeah.
Joe, how would you survive Titanic?
Well, I've done some research.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you have as well.
Mm.
And apparently, I mean, I'm breaking some of our rules here by kind of taking on knowledge that they wouldn't have had on the ship.
Right.
But I think Thomas Andrews, I think Thomas Andrews, if he was half the engineer he claimed to be, would be able to work this out.
Okay.
With a little more time. So it's not too much of a stretch to assume that this could be learned.
Mm-hmm.
Due to its design, the ship would have survived striking the iceberg if it was a head-on collision.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I would have not averted course at all.
Yeah. So you're in the position of the captain.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd have said, look, don't worry, boys. This ship is unsinkable.
Yeah.
we'll just ram the iceberg.
Yeah. Into next week.
Yeah. And we'll tell everyone to brace themselves. But ultimately, the ship's going to hold up to that. Because of the way it's built, because it's sort of
thick
like
towards it.
a missile. Yeah.
And it's like the compartments towards the front would have flooded, but it could survive a certain number of compartments flooding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It would have been slowed down, but it would have made it to New York. And that's my first way to survive, is just to simply not try.
So you're placing yourself in the position of captain.
Yes.
Which is quite arrogant.
Well, I've got experience on boats.
Yeah.
I've been on a boat before. So.
Well,
what were you putting yourself in the position of?
Well, in the position of Jack and Rose.
Right.
Avoid irresponsible public displays of affection, because they distract lookouts, who then miss the iceberg.
Right.
And miss precious seconds to divert course, which could have saved
averted disaster.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's the scene where they're out on deck. The lookouts are distracted because they're like, oh, look at that.
And then,
and then they crash into the iceberg as a result. And it is in those seconds, Joe, that all those lives are lost.
Yeah, that's true.
So
it's Jack and Kate's fault.
Jack and Kate? In some ways...
Wrong film.
Yeah. Jack and Rose, yeah. In some ways it is.
By the way, you know, a lot often in these films we discuss, there's a bit of a motif of if you have sex, something bad's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Well, minutes before they strike the iceberg, they're having sex in the car.
Yeah, that's true.
So do you think James Cameron's been reading up on his horror movie motifs?
Are you thinking that this is like an avant-garde slasher film?
The iceberg is the slasher, which has been stalking them without them knowing it.
Yeah. Standing in plain sight.
Because we knew it was there, and we know the tension's building.
That's true. So are you going to argue that Titanic is a slasher film?
Yes, till I'm blue in the face.
Contrary to your method to survive, which involves basically geeing everyone up by saying, lads, we're in an unsinkable ship, let's fucking nut this guy.
Exactly. Yes.
Right. I would have said, be cynical, don't believe in hype/PR. Now, how many times, Joe, do you see an advert, you see a poster for something, and you see it and you go, well, that's nonsense, what they're claiming.
Right.
If you saw an advert and they went, this is the biggest ship in the world, it's called Titanic, it's unsinkable, you'd go, well, it's made of iron, sir.
I'm sure it'll sink.
Yeah. Basically, I'm saying, don't believe the hype, don't buy into it. It's a PR campaign, and it's cost lives, Joe, at the end of the day.
I will say, in the film, I'll allow it, because Cal, as soon as we see him, is banging his chest saying, I love this ship, it's unsinkable.
Yeah. Well,
but in real life, no one ever said it was unsinkable. It was only afterwards they said kind of, well, we thought it was unsinkable.
I have read that prior to its embarkment, it was quoted as being, from engineers and from news articles, as being practically unsinkable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which suggests to me that it wasn't necessarily a strict PR line taken by the White Star cruise line company.
It was just...
Yeah, it was, like a
hoo-ha.
Yeah, like a sort of apocryphal sort of thing, but somehow captured the public's imagination.
Interestingly, we're both from Southampton, where it sailed from, and interestingly, my great-grandmother was there to see the ship leave and wave it off. Now, she was down at the docks, and she waved it off, and she said to whoever she was with, I bet the ship sinks.
Yeah.
That the ship, will sink. And she did.
Okay.
The ship sank.
Yeah.
And I got that story from my grandmother, who had it from her mother. So that's a story that's gone down 3 generations.
Yeah.
And, well, I don't know if it's true or not. Like most of the stories around the Titanic, there's sort of no way to verify it.
Yeah.
Because the people in it are dead. So you could say I have somewhat of a genetic link with the Titanic, right?
Right, yeah.
Enough of a genetic link with the Titanic that my genetic link with the Titanic has...
You don't have a genetic link with the
No,
Titanic?
I do. My great-grandmother... This is fact, Chris. My great-grandmother saw that the Titanic was going to sink. Mm-hmm. And she told people.
Yeah. She warned them.
She warned them. Not people on it, I'll admit. But...
She waited till it left.
But had I had such a...
Power,
which I would. It's genetic.
I mean, it is power. I mean, it's not... Yeah, it's a psychic power.
It's not...
Let's not beat around the bush. I mean, before we started recording this podcast, you said, Chris, it's time... It's episode 10. It's time that I reveal to the world my true calling, my abilities, my superpowers.
Yeah.
That's what you said to me, and I'm glad that you've finally been able to
reveal
them to the world.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah. I mean,
unfortunately,
let's just nail this down. So, like, do you have to be at the dock?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So, if you're at the dock of a launching ship,
well, only the Titanic.
Only the Titanic.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Which makes it a bit of an issue.
Yeah, but within the specific scenario of you co-hosting a podcast in which we discuss how we'd survive, this power could in fact be used by yourself to avoid getting on the Titanic, because in that situation you would have the power to determine whether or not the Titanic was going to sink and not get on the boat.
That's correct.
I mean, that's flawless.
Yeah.
That's a flawless method of survival. I think after 10 episodes, we found the first bulletproof, unsinkable how to survive theory. And it is because of your psychic powers.
My great-grandmother.
Remember at the start of the film, they hop on to the boat through the little sort of door in the ship's side.
Yes.
Later on in the film, when the ship is sinking, Fabrizio and a number of other people are shown looking out of that same door, because it presumably leads to third class, at the tilting ship and the lifeboats coming down.
Right.
And because of the way the ship is sinking, that door is close to the water now, which is obviously like, oh my god. Why don't they jump out of the... Because another element that we haven't discussed yet is that lifeboats are only about 20% full.
Yeah, they can hold 65, but generally they only have between 12 and 25.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So these half-empty lifeboats, over half-empty lifeboats, are being lowered to the sea, maybe like 10 or 20 yards away. Why don't they get a life jacket, which they all have, jump out of the thing? It'll be really cold. Yeah. Like you have to hope that you survive the cold, and swim to one of the lifeboats.
Well, you're assuming they'd let you on, isn't it?
But that's murder, though, and that's quite an assumption. Yeah. There's quite a difference between we're of a certain class, so we should get on the boats first, and women and children first, because that's the moral thing to do. There's quite a leap from that to don't get on a boat. I'd rather you drown. I'm sending you to your death.
It's an ultimatum, basically.
Yeah.
Well, fair enough. Yeah.
I think that what Fabrizio should have done was, rather than wait till he was on the boat as it sank and then get crushed by a funnel, is leap out of the side door.
It's a bad way to go. I was thinking about this.
It's annoying, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I think about deaths like that in films. I think, it's really annoying. Like, you'd be in that second just before it hit you, you'd be like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Come this far.
Do you reckon I think it would hurt.
Yeah?
Getting crushed under a funnel. It'd probably kill you instantly.
If it hit you on the head, you'd be dead instantly.
Yeah, they are swimming head up, as is tradition.
Fabrizio's not one of these like circus upside down swimmers.
Synchronised.
If he was, maybe to survive.
Yeah, exactly.
How to survive. No, but I think that's that struck me as you saw that shot in the film, Like,
why didn't they take the opportunity?
Yeah. I guess they're leaving the door open, and if no one closes it,
it would sink faster.
Flooding the whole third-class section of the ship, which is somewhat irresponsible.
Yes, and you do have to think of your compatriots.
I suppose so. Although, interesting fact, Joe, when we're talking about the lifeboats, women and children first, despite that being a, if you think of a ship sinking, lifeboats, it's like a, I don't know what you call it really, a tradition? A procedure, women and children first, right? In a study of 18 maritime disasters, 17.8% of women survived and 34.5% of men survived, with the scientists concluding it really is every man for himself, suggesting that chivalry is in fact dead.
This is more recently or just ever? This
is 18 maritime disasters where 15,000 people died, so it is over a long time. And it's suggested that the Titanic is an exception because 70% of the women were saved on the Titanic and only 20% of the men, which is quite a damning statistic.
But is that worldwide, or is that all just in British? Because they were
it's worldwide, I believe, maritime. It's 18 of the world's most famous maritime disasters from 1852 to 2011. So,
what's your method?
Well, so
in just an observation.
In terms of that, it would be a woman or a child. So, yeah. And you have a higher percent. You have a 7 out of 10 shot of surviving.
If you're a woman or a child.
Yeah,
it's not bad.
It's all right, isn't it? You take those odds.
They're not NASA odds. And NASA wouldn't launch something on a
7 out of 10 probability. No. But the White Star line probably would.
Yes.
Equally, if you want to survive, there's one surefire way of surviving, as the film makes clear. Be horrible, rich in order to bribe people, a coward, unsentimental. So, for example, when Rose is being lowered down in the lifeboat, just stay on the boat, or a cross-dresser.
Yeah.
Pretend to be a woman. Be one of those 7 out of 10. Be the 8th.
Yeah, the 8th woman.
Yeah.
Do you know that there's a story of a boy who hid up a woman's blouse, up her dress, like a child.
Right.
A male child, who got on one of the lifeboats and was forced at gunpoint by one of the guards to get out of the boat. And then the guard got in the boat and lowered it down. And the boy died.
Wow.
How bad is that?
Who told that story?
The boy. You know that famous line from the film? The one that everyone remembers. You know the one? No. The other one.
I'm flying?
No, the other one.
Go on.
Smell ice, can you? Bleeding Christ.
Yeah.
Right. So these are the lookouts. The two lookouts who are on the look for icebergs. Yeah. One of them says to the other, smell ice, can you? Bleeding Christ.
Mm-hmm.
I take that to mean...
In a previous conversation, he said, I'm so good at being a lookout, I can smell the ice.
Did he?
No, as in, I presume that's what he said.
Right. He's basically saying ice is smellable. This led to a discussion among me and the people I was watching it with, my housemates, whether ice is smellable.
Yeah, does it have a scent?
Yeah, and to prove a point, I went to the freezer to smell the ice. But do you know what? Whilst defrosting some chicken the day before, right?
Yeah.
The liquid, like the water from the frozen chicken, had it dripped down the fridge, like rendering a lot of food useless.
Yeah.
Into the, it's a fridge freezer, so it went from in the fridge, ran down the inside into the freezer where it had turned. But in doing that, it soaked into the frost. So when I grabbed a fistful of ice, it smelled of rotten chicken very strongly. So, my proposal to not necessarily avoid to survive in the film, but to avoid future ones, is to drop the melted water from frozen chicken in large amounts on every iceberg in the North Atlantic.
Okay.
And then, smell ice, can you? Yes, I can.
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
30 degrees starboard, please.
yeah, no problem. Last thing, there's lots of life jackets. A lot of life jackets.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly in the scenes when they're sort of running around the lower decks, trying to get out.
Yeah.
Practically every scene has a steward carrying a stack of life jackets.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're in such large supply, I'd grab a bunch of them, fasten them together, maybe find a door similar to the one you mentioned for Fabrizio,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe just go to the top deck and throw it off.
Yeah. Build a raft.
Jump on it. You two can...
How much so a life jacket's enough to keep one person semi above water.
Yeah.
So let's say you needed 4
Per person.
Yeah. To be safe.
We get 8.
Yeah. What, for Jack and Rose?
Mm.
Yeah, that's doable.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of controversial flotation,
Go on.
the door conundrum
Mm.
is a hot bone of contention.
They did solve it on Mythbusters.
They did, yeah.
Mm.
They proved that Rose could have, in fact, shared the wardrobe door, and it would have stayed afloat with Jack and Rose on it, so long as they put the life vest that Rose was wearing underneath the door.
Mm.
It would have stayed afloat.
There you go.
So that's the mystery solved.
But I believe James Cameron responded to that by saying, thematically, Jack had to die.
So to what extent? Yeah, okay. Well, then it's impossible to survive as Jack in this film.
Because the theme won't let you.
The theme, yeah. The theme is the villain.
We've had some correspondence from...
I believe it's been a bumper.
Yeah.
Episode.
The thing is, everyone's seen it. So everyone's got an idea. A lot of them are similar.
Mm-hmm.
Who have you heard from?
Tom writes in, occasional contributor Tom.
Hi, Tom.
He says, be an upper class woman, which is an obvious thing.
Yeah,
Can't necessarily pick and choose. And then he says, get in a lifeboat regardless, which, as we see in the film, through the guy who's first to die, or one of the first to die, actually not one of the first to die, because the people drown in the lower compartments, don't they? The person who dies above deck, basically, when they try to climb into a lifeboat, and he's shot by the officer.
Yeah.
Because he just tries to. It's just a man who tries to climb into a lifeboat. I don't know. It's not even as if the lifeboat's going down.
No.
He just climbs in, and I don't know what his plan is
He's
from that point
order.
on. Just sit in it and go. Just wait for
it to fill up. Get in there early.
Terrible idea though.
Yeah.
To survive.
Matt writes in.
Mm-hmm.
Fairly regular correspondent, Matt. He says clearly there's enough room on the wood for Jack. Or alternatively, plan ahead and make some sort of device or raft to lay on. Fair enough.
Yeah, that sort of echoes what we were saying.
Yeah. Lauren, very similar input. She says, as a woman, I would have just waited to be put on a lifeboat, which we know is only a 7 in 10 chance anyway.
Yeah.
But good idea, Lauren.
It's decent odds though. It's probably higher among higher class people.
Yeah, exactly. And she says one of the few advantages to being female in those days is, of course, being able to get in a lifeboat. If there wasn't space on the lifeboat, or I was too poor to be saved, I would have grabbed a life jacket and tried to find some kind of flotation device to keep me out of the water. I might have tried to break down a door in preparation for the ship sinking.
That's one thing.
I don't know before or after the icebergs hit.
Well, but that's a fair point, because you don't see anyone like breaking the furniture down.
Well, you do see people chucking things overboard, but those are mostly like flotation rings and what have you. But you might actually dive in the water before the ship goes down in order to get away from the suck and get to safety.
Okay.
Another from Tom. He says...
Different Tom?
Just a different Tom, yeah. He says, right, I recall from an episode of QI that they didn't go women and children into the rafts. That's just how history reports it.
Well, we've established that...
On Titanic it actually did.
Yeah.
However, this is how to survive in Titanic, the film, with all the rules of the film. Therefore, I'd buddy up with someone who looks a bit like Tony Curtis, and we do a full Some Like It Hot routine to get into the rafts. Alternatively, if the drag plan does not work, go full Frederick Baudin and pretend to be a child. This may be combined with kneeling and tying my shoes to my knees. And finally, Chris, not you, another Chris, he writes in and says, I'd play cards with Leonardo DiCaprio in a Southampton bar at the beginning, get punched in ensuing bar fights, and wake up hours later in a daze to find out you'd missed the boat.
I've got another suggestion. This is from Mike. He says, time a swan dive at just the right moment, throwing a life jacket into the water just beforehand, as the ship's bow breaks and crashes into the water, early enough that the fall/impact wouldn't kill me, and late enough that I'd clear the ship. And I asked Mike, what about the cold? And he had no answer. I've also got one other from Kelly, who writes in to say, wear a life jacket at all times on the boat.
Not bad idea.
Just go around wearing it.
Yeah.
Even if you're in first class, you're sat at dinner, and you're just in your enormous life jacket. Or, if you're Rose, be stupid enough to not realise the gravity of the situation and get in the boat, thereby avoiding the emotional trauma of leaving Jack because you don't realise that you're leaving home forever.
To be stupid.
Yeah. Like so just be like, he'll be like, get in the boat, Rose, and you'll just be like, okay, well,
very good.
Yeah.
One final one from me, because of Hannah. Rose had at least 3 opportunities to get Jack a life jacket and didn't. She left hers on her mother's lap instead of wearing it, which meant when Jack found one, she got it. She then could have given him her life jacket since she was safely floating on that cupboard door, but she kept it. She had a coat keeping her warm and a blanket that got tossed on the floor, and Jack just had a thin shirt. She also ran past a man carrying 4 or more life jackets and could have got one for Jack.
Yeah.
If Rose had stayed on her boat originally, Jack would likely have survived. Obviously, she didn't know about the raft, but he is so street smart, he would have survived much more easily and probably wormed his way onto another boat, or at least onto the door that he does eventually end up on.
That's probably
at
true.
the end. So she single-handedly causes his death by being
emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if she had stayed on that raft, it would have been better for everyone. But no, for romance's sake. But then she ends up surviving anyway. So like the supposedly selfless act of like, oh, I'd rather die with Jack than live with you, Cal. What she's actually doing is, I'd rather murder Jack.
Yeah. I'd rather Jack dies and you live.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she saved him. She saved Cal. I know I said that was the last one, but I've actually got a couple more. Mike writes in. Another Mike. A lot of people with similar names.
Yeah.
This is living in Britain. Do that to you. Mike says, let Rose commit suicide. Just don't get involved.
Route 1 solution. Yeah. In fact, if she commits suicide, he doesn't stop her. No one finds her body. Jack and Rose don't embark on a love affair. They don't kiss inappropriately on the deck.
And cause the iceberg.
And don't distract the lookouts. The lookouts see the iceberg. The iceberg is avoided. The Titanic doesn't sink.
There you go.
He's nailed it.
Yeah.
And on that bombshell, it's time to end the 10th episode of the How to Survive podcast. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for writing in. We've really enjoyed your ideas.
If you want to get in touch, the email address, as always, is howtosurviveshow@gmail.com.
And if you want to check out our back catalogue of film reviews and assessments of survival, do head over to howtosurviveshow.com.
It's our brand new website.
Yes. Probably still in development, to be fair. So go easy on it.
Yeah.
Whatever you're listening on, be sure to subscribe, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
And don't forget to smell the ice.
Bleeding Christ.